Welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, brought to you by OnlineGreatBooks.com, where we talk about the good life, the great books, great conversation, and great ideas.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Online Great Books podcast. I'm Brett, the producer, and this is part 2 in Scott and Karl's discussion of Larry Correia's Monster Hunter International. Fresh start this week. There is no overlap between the two shows. We left off last week. Scott had just concluded a story about his intervention on Instagram with a hat company. Scott had ordered a hat from this hat company, and he was really happy with his hat. And then he noticed that the hat company was being trolled by a man who also claimed to get a hat from this hat company and said he was unhappy with his hat. And Scott was like, come on, dude, grow up. My hat was great, and there's other ways to solve this problem. And as a result, that hat company sent Scott a free, you guessed it, hat. And then Karl starts a brand new subject. Thanks for listening. Here we go.
If you are of those that like firearms, there's plenty of this for you in here. Just like technical descriptions. I'm reading the technical description of Abomination right now. Most of it goes over my head, but it looks fun.
Do you think that the gun talk would be off-putting to non-gunnies?
My wife loves this book.
I don't think it would bump him. I really don't. He doesn't go down the hole about barrel twist rates and all this stuff. It's just enough.
It's like Tom Clancy. If you read Tom Clancy novels, you were going to get a whole bunch of stuff about Trident missiles,
right,
and such, and it didn't detract too much from the story. If you do have any sort of attraction to neat things that go boom, you'll love all that stuff. But I don't think it's an off-putting if you don't.
Mm-mm.
So let's see. There's also Owen is starting to receive dreams from Mordecai Baraka.
The old man.
The old man, yeah. Old dead Czech Jewish monster hunter who appears in his dreams and tells him stuff. So he's got some connections, mystical connections. It turns out that he's a bit of a psychic on this thing. He sees things before they're going to happen. It sounds crazy, but it all works out in the story and actually turns out to be 100% necessary at the very end.
Yeah.
So he has this ghost living in his head that yells at him all the time.
Dumb boy.
Boy, try not to be made dead. It's fun. I was trying to figure out where to go. It is 700 and something pages. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was so long.
Oh, I appreciate that.
They're all the same length in my Kindle.
It is 713 pages long. But, I don't think there are a lot of extra pages in there, because there certainly can be extra pages in certain fantasy and fiction books. But I don't think that's the case here. I think it's all needed. I do think so like any good book like this, there's a rift in time space and you got to go through the rift, and the rift closes and you don't know how it's going to open. And he does sort of wrap all of that up. It's a little too tidy. It's a little too facile there at the end, how that gets done. But it's fine. It's great fun. The book does exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. If you can read Larry Correia's own stuff on, I think it's monsterhunternation.com. You can read his blog. It's kind of fun to read, especially when he talks about writing. For him, the point of it is entertaining people and selling books.
Yeah.
He's not writing to make deep statements, to change the world or to achieve some justice goal. That's not why he's writing. And he has very bad things to say about people who do that.
Well, yes. And I've read some of that, and science fiction is shot in the ass with that stuff right now.
Yeah.
But I think if you're a good person with a coherent worldview, your books, while they won't have to be good books with a coherent worldview, tend to be that, right? So he's not trying to moralize here or anything, but we end up with some of that. He's not hitting us over the head with lessons, but they're in there, right? There's a message about faith. There's a message about love and devotion. There's a message about will, about devotion to the good. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
George R.R. whatever can't do that because he's not that kind of a person, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, that's a good example. The Game of Thrones has, I read every book that exists of that. There will be no more. He will never finish it.
He can't. He's incontinent.
All the scenery is great.
I tickle myself.
The world has some depth to it. The guy can definitely write, but he's like Grant. He's fundamentally unsound. The ending, if the ending in the TV show is anything like the ending he planned, it's a terrible ending.
Here's a question. Can evil write good? Like good can write evil.
Mm-hmm.
Can evil write good?
Apparently not. At least... I'm sorry, George, if you listen to this, I really enjoyed the journey, but was very disappointed at the end. And I was hoping that some of those characters in the Song of Ice and Fire would end up being good somehow or other. And there wasn't much payoff of that. The whole Game of Thrones is all these people competing for power in that world. Meanwhile, there's barbarians at the gate, at the North Wall, ready to eat them all. And you're waiting for somebody to show up and be good. And Jon Snow was kind of that, but it was unsatisfying.
See, for the sociosexual gamma, which Martin seems to be, he cannot understand the mechanisms behind good action. Like, if there's a hero, certain authors cannot conceive of why they are heroic or by what means they're heroic. They can't see all of the training and all of the work and sacrifice behind Karl's 603 squat or whatever it is. They're just like, oh, that fucking guy is just strong. It's his genetics, 605, and and if I worked from home and so on, then I could, they just can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't write a convincing good character. They can't do it because they just cannot conceive of the habituation into the good. They can't understand it.
Yeah, I think that's...
in fact, they resent it.
I think that's probably right. Good people can write bad guys, probably better bad guys. I don't want to talk about Game of Thrones too much. I was waiting for Jaime Lannister to step up to the plate, and actually, it never quite worked out. I want to read a quote from the author. So he's a Californian who moved to Utah, but he set this book in Alabama. I guess that's where he did his Mormon mission. So he has some experience of Alabama. He's one of those Mormon science fiction writers. There's a few. They tend to be good. David Weber, I believe, is a Mormon. Orson Scott Card. Larry Correia.
Oh, is that right? Is it because their faith is science fiction?
I did not say that.
I don't know.
But, I like all of them. I think Weber's a Mormon. I like all their books. I read them. Southerners get screwed in fiction. They're portrayed as hicks, racists, and illiterates. In real life, they're proud, heroic, smart, hardworking, good people. So I made MHI a Southern-centric organization.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the scene right now where he's fighting gargoyles, because gargoyles are real too. They're in the asylum where old monster hunters go, or other people with problems, and they're helping out the doctor, and they say, "Those are interesting gargoyles you have on your building." And the doctor says, "We don't have gargoyles on our building."
Yeah. What?
And so there's these stone monsters, and they're fighting them. And it's a thrilling fight, and it looks like things are going to be bad. And then you hear the crack of a rifle, and holes start appearing in the gargoyle. And it turns out it's this guy from the house up on the hill. "Are you folks okay?" The man was older, had a thick southern accent. He came walking tentatively from a nearby farm, an embroidered NRA hat on his head. "What in the hell was that thing?" "Gargoyle." And he comes out and he helps them. He calls the paramedics. He gloats a little bit because he finally had a reason to shoot his great big elephant gun that his wife told him he never needed. Well, you don't need it until you need it.
You don't need it till you
and then
need
you really need it. So these noble figures from rural Southern America, it's nice to see. Because, in fact, they do get screwed in popular culture right now.
That's what happens when you lose.
Yeah, winners write histories in literature, but sometimes they don't write very well.
Yeah, I appreciate him. I appreciate him saying that and then doing that. Correia saying that and then putting that. And then actually writing the book. Have you read any of the Jack Reacher novels?
About 3 of them, I think.
This kind of reminded me of that. Jack Reacher is this enormous, strong, warrior type like Pitt, but he's kind of superhuman. Reacher drifts into town and rights some wrongs and then splits. He doesn't fall in love with the girl or like Pitt does here, but it kind of similar. If you like the Reacher novels, particularly the first handful of those, I think that you would like Monster Hunters International, or vice versa. If you like this, you'd probably like Reacher. I kind of like Reacher's philosophies too. We could read a Reacher novel and talk about that, like about justice, like Reacher's notions of justice. Mm-hmm. He's like, you opened the door, he says.
Yeah, I want to read a quote about the South. So far, I like the South. I like the people and their attitude. But I sure could do without all the damn gnats, mosquitoes, chiggers, ticks, and other things interested in eating me. I think I share that opinion. I also like the South and the West, the Southwest, I guess. But boy, the bugs are big.
I got some cousins that live in New Mexico. And when I was a kid, they came to Oklahoma to visit us for the 4th of July. And we're like, hey, don't go over there. You'll get chiggers. Well, they thought that was like the boogeyman or something, like just something you say because the parents don't want you playing on the railroad tracks or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They thought it was made up, like a jackalope or whatever. And they got a big old bait of the chiggers. It's not good,
I
man.
have not had chiggers.
Not good. The itch the human can't itch more than the chigger just triggers all of those immune responses that make you itch. You can't itch more than with chigger bites. Miserable.
Well, the grandfather coming into the fight.
You have a page number on that.
And I have a location. Chapter 20. Where he says he ain't sitting this one out. Of course, he's got his Smith & Wesson 1917 .45 revolver.
Which is a revolver, yeah.
Which I've seen. It has to have a special clip to hold the 45s because they don't have a rim on them because they're not revolver rounds.
Yeah, he's not going to set that one out. That's what you're there for.
Well, that's what you're there for. You're not there to sit on your porch and rock in your rocking chair. You're there to defend your family.
Like, let's say you have 3 more years left. Going out, killing monsters or trying to kill monsters that are going to harm your posterity seems like way better than the nursing home or hammering Social Security checks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there used to be a sort of a veneration of the older, and that we just don't have anymore. It's a shame. It's a shame. But part of the reason for that is because they're not venerable.
Well, we've taken it away. We've taken it away from them, I think. I mean, they don't live with you. They live off in a home. They're not working. Mishima says there are no opportunities left for a noble and glorious death.
Mm-hmm.
And so he made his own, and I don't really like his choice because I would have liked him to write more books. But there's a sense in which he's correct. I mean, if the goal of life is retirement and I don't know, and what?
Well, yeah, right. So you say we've kind of removed that from them. There is an attitude, though, like, I'm going to spend the inheritance and the last check is going to bounce while I'm on my deathbed. There's not a connectedness to a posterity. I don't know where it comes from. But I like, oh my gosh, what's the bishop's name in the Song of Roland? You know it?
The bishop that fought.
The fighting bishop. I like the idea that the older would be a warrior class. You know, and I understand, you know, maybe the sweet spot for going over the top and charging the Hun machine gun is 18 years old. I understand that, but there's also, I used to play racquetball against this guy that was in his late 60s when I was at the University of Oklahoma. And I couldn't beat him because he was always where the ball was. Like, he never moved. He was fat, and he never moved, and he was always right where the ball was going to be. Like, he had this economy of motion and everything. I was just like flailing around and just working my ass off.
Yep.
And he was always where he needed to be.
Age and guile beats youth and enthusiasm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know.
Let's walk down that hill.
All right. So, Grandpa, there you are sitting at home, disengaged from your family, watching, I don't know, you're watching the baseball. You got to watch the Cubs. And that's what you're doing. You fall asleep in your chair. How about you go, like, make sure your granddaughters aren't on OnlyFans? You know? Do your job, which would be to defend them from a world that wants them in bad ways. Make an ass of yourself to your family. They might not like you.
You have nothing to lose.
But it's not your job to be liked by your grandchildren.
Right.
It's your job to protect them. So make a nuisance of yourself, get in their lives, do what you can to help. And yeah, they might not like you and they might not come visit. Who cares? They weren't coming to visit anyway.
Probably not.
Yeah, so I really like that Elder Shackelford is in the fight. I'm trying to find some of the battle scenes that hit me. So they go down to Natchez Bottom. I didn't look up to see if that's a real place. In Mississippi, I think, which is where the Wendigo lives. They're trying to find this place of power. They're trying to find out where the big bad guy is going to be. And it turns out it's a trap. And so they're all stuck and are about to get killed. And in fact, they do all end up getting killed. But the way they go out is Agent Franks has his arms torn off or paralyzed or something. And he just kind of shrugs and just dives into the pile with his teeth. You know, that's straight out of Herodotus. That's what the Spartans did at Thermopylae.
Right. If you're going to go down. Oh, God. I did a little Scott stream this morning, Karl, and I will tell some of this story here. I met a guy, very dear friend of mine, introduced me to one of his in-laws on Monday. This in-law is about 67 years old, and he has done everything that we're supposed to do. Like, he was in banking, and he has a house right on the golf course over by the thing, you know, and it was on the school board for 19 years and was in banking, and, you know, he's done all the stuff we're supposed to do, right? He goes to the church of what's happening now and is, you know, all that stuff, you know. And we were talking about, I don't remember how this came up, but he said, he said he had been on the school board. I said, well, what was that like? I'm not going to jump up the guy's shit about public schools. Maybe I should have, but he's not on the school board anymore. So I'm like, yeah, what was that like? And he said, well, we really tried hard to do well for the kids. And we were very concerned about, there at the end about safety, in particular, having a trans student want to play girls' sports and, you know, breaking a girl's leg in soccer, maybe, or, you know, some such. I said, yeah, I understand that. So what did you guys do about it? And he said, well, it never happened at our school, but we had a planning session to figure out what we would do if some trans dude ever wanted to play girls' soccer. Somebody's hating me right now. Well, fuck you. And I said, well, what was the plan? And he said, we decided we were going to fight it out in court. And I thought, well, I didn't say anything to the guy, but I'm like, what? That is weak as water. Somebody's going to do something that is an affront to you. And if you don't have a philosophical problem with the idea that someone's soul has a sex that's different than their material body, if you don't have like a metaphysical problem with it, and you think it's just a safety issue, are you going to leave it up to a less than coin flip chance that the church, little flip there, that the court is going to come down on the side of where you believe is right, or are you going to actually fight? You're going to have some entity that MHI might hunt down that wears a robe, decide. And he said, I didn't, my face must have shown something. And he said, what do you think we should have done? And I said, well, I've never really thought about it because I'm not on the school board, but I think I would just shut down all the sports. Mm-hmm. I'd shut them all down and have a press conference and say, hey, we've had this student that's been a dude for 11 years who now wants to kick the soccer ball with the girls' soccer team. We're deeply worried about their safety, but we want to protect what small budget we already have from the vast expense of litigation. So we've determined that no one will play any sports. He said, oh boy, what about the students that are trying to get scholarships? I'm like, they might be mad at that person then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
They might just kick the shit out of that person in the parking lot. Like you might bring some social pressure to bear on them. But I was like, I don't know. You just asked me. I'm just spitballing here. But my answer wouldn't be, I'll let the court decide. I'll go down swinging on that one.
And if you lose in court, then I guess it's over, right?
Well, how about you lose in court because you played a card they didn't expect you to play? And that card might be, we're shutting all the sports down.
Yeah.
Okay, go to court about that. Then we're going to have a ruling about whether you have sports or not whether there's a dude on the team. But anyway, these older folks, they just don't even know how to fight. Like, the guy's retired. He just got off the school board. Like, he's not going to get deplatformed. The HR lady isn't going to fire him from his bank job. He's flush. He's good to go. Mm-hmm. He's the guy that should be fighting, not the poor middle-aged guy with the 14-year-old girl who doesn't want to get her femur broken by the big hulking guy who now wears a dress. That guy can't fight it. He has a job. He has a mortgage. He can't do it. That old guy should have been out there doing it.
Yeah, well...
Gosh.
I think that's the people who should be doing it.
Well, they're not going to because he lives on the golf course. And he's got to, go hit the links.
Yeah, I know. I haven't played golf in 20 years. Speaking of this, so I really like Agent Franks. Franks is apparently the bad guy at the beginning, the one that's going to shoot Pitt if he turns into
right.
He turns out to be pretty tough. So this is when they're all dying. I'm going to read a little bit. Franks pulled himself to the top. Blood was streaming down his lacerated face, and his armor was smoking and burning with acid. A spine, this is a spine of the alien critters, burned his bicep. With no display of emotion, he grabbed the shard and wrenched it free in a splash of red. The injured arm hung limply at his side. He drew his Glock and nodded at me. Die with dignity, he stated simply. Behind him, the last of his men looked around in panicked bewilderment, put his pistol in his mouth, and pulled the trigger. Franks cringed as his last charge died. Not like that. The dark Fed fired into the masses, dropping onrushing demons with unflinching accuracy. A little bit further down, Frank's slide locked back on his Glock. He calmly dropped the magazine, placed it in the crook of his life, his arm to hold it, grabbed another mag, inserted it, snapped the slide closed, and went back to shooting. A launched spine struck him in the wrist, traveled up his arm, and exploded out his elbow, opening his forearm like a gutted fish. The gun dropped from his deaded hand. See, now both arms are gone. Oh, well, he said, both arms hanging limp, drizzling blood at his side. With no hesitation, he charged downward into the horde, kicking a monster back with his heavy boot, then shattered another's mandibles with his forehead. He kicked another in its package of eyes, but a lashing claw opened up his inner thigh and femoral artery. He fell on his back and was dragged under the orange horde.
They're going to get you anyway.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Have you seen We Were Soldiers and Young?
I have not.
Mel Gibson and Sam Elliott's in that. Based on a true story.
I have not seen that one.
You gotta go see it. There's stuff like that in there. Thermopylae.
That's that quote from Heinlein. There's no better thing for a man to do than to place his body between his family and the enemy. That's from Starship Troopers somewhere. It's what you're for.
Especially if it's not actual combat.
Right.
Especially if you're on the school board. It's not like everybody's going to be like guns at noon in the street. Yet. Look what I dug up, Karl.
What's that?
I said I couldn't remember the first time I saw or met Charity. But here's Charity in like 91. That's the girl that decked Joey in the nose. About broke it. She screwed him up. She may have broken it, but he didn't have any medical care, you know. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, go ahead and put a baby in there.
Well, so they all die. And of course, it being a fantasy novel and there being an alien artifact, Pitt is able to do some stuff and reverse that. But he didn't know it at the time, and the characters didn't know it at the time. And
and he does it through an act of will, right? He says, "Oh, I wish it was 5 minutes ago,"
mm-hmm.
and then it is, which is interesting. I think there are certain arenas, in which the only thing that works is will, like Thomas tells us.
Yes.
We have this infinite regress problem when you talk about the creation of the universe, right? Paul kind of heard a version of this. Like, Karl's yawning right now. Well, his mom and dad had to do something so he would be here, and then their mom and dads had to do something so they would be here, and you keep going back, and you go back, and you go back, and you end up with this prime mover problem. Like, either it's like, either there's one billiard ball that hit another billiard ball forever, which is a paradox and can't be true. Like, the motion had to come from somewhere. It had to start somewhere. Right. And so this is Aquinas' prime mover problem. It's like, well, there's a mover. It had to start somewhere. We're just going to assume that somewhere way back there's one thing that started the motion. Well, how would its motion come about? Because he has this Aristotelian physics that I have too. Like, motion begets motion. It has to come. You can't things just don't move. Well, he says that it was a will that caused the first motion. That prime mover had a will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes we have things that we need to do, like dig a big old hole, and it's going to be hot, and you might get chiggers because I need to put a fence post in. Nothing will happen to that damned hole until I actually will my ass up out of the chair and out into the heat and pick up the shovel and do it. Like, everything just starts with that will. The old man says it several times. I think Julie says it. I mean, they talk about he has an extraordinary will. I don't see enough extraordinary will. So I end up with my acquaintance. It's like, well, I'll will the court to fight it out for me. or whatever. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's like, there are certain things that require will. And without will, nothing happens, which includes me picking up this phone that's sitting on the desk. Like, yeah, I believe we have it, or we should have it.
The thing about the will, the thing that you see in this story, especially at the end when he doesn't choose the eternal life with Julie.
Which is a choice.
And it all works out from the end anyway, but which was nice, but it didn't have to, and it still would have been a good story, is that an act of genuine will... So if you have some sort of bad habit and you act in accord with that bad habit, and so, in other words, you do what it is that you want to do, what would a good example be? Heck, I don't know. We'll do it in food. We'll keep it non-controversial. You do it in food. And so you've been eating too much and you need to not eat so much. You eating whatever it is you want is not an act of will. That's an act of appetite.
Yep.
You're doing what you already want. There's no problem doing it. There's no friction. There's no discomfort to it. A genuine act of the will, or at least one that you're going to know that you have an act of the will, is when it is uncomfortable, when it hurts, when you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it because it's uncomfortable, but you do it anyway because you think it's the good and right thing to do. That's the will.
Is that what the mover did?
Was it uncomfortable? I don't know. That the eternal God could be uncomfortable is a difficult question.
Everything starts with will. That's all.
Yeah. One of the things I like about the characters that make these decisions in this book, it's not fun for them. It's not just when you say make a great act of will to activate the alien artifact in order to close the rift. It's not, snap your fingers. It's not ho-hum.
And he couldn't will to have that will. Like, it was part of his character that he didn't say, I'm going to be really steadfast in this before the first page of the book. He wasn't like, I'm going to be real steadfast in this and bold and bring all that to bear when I get in a fight with a vampire. Like, he had no idea. Like, it's something that he had already had, whether that was for practicing all of his illegal backroom fighting that he did, or firearms training, whatever. He had already habituated himself into having that will and to moving into that discomfort and fear and all of that stuff. He was already there.
Yeah, you have to have it before you have it.
Dang it.
Sorry.
You can't call Uber fights when they come and kill the werewolf for you.
Mm-hmm. No, you can't.
I've just come up with some great business ideas, like William hates Monster Soft and Uber fights. Those are awesome. You got an app on your phone, Uber fights.
Yeah, so the gun people say when you need one, you're going to need one really bad. Well, let's take it out of that realm. When you need virtue, you're going to need it really bad. And I'm going to quote Mike Teixeira, who talks about strength in this way. He says, when you need strength, it's too late for you to get it.
Yeah. You
had to have already gotten it. So you need to be practicing this will that can possibly fight werewolves or vampires or whatever needs to be fought, the school board. You need to already be the sort of person that can do that before that situation shows up. So character's important. Read some good stories.
How little will does it take to actually do what I was talking about in terms of the school board thing? Like almost none.
I don't know. It takes a bit, especially if you're comfortable and you want to stay comfortable. You're faced with, if you think that's the right choice, you're faced with the whole school possibly hating you, and people don't like to be hated. They would rather be liked and be wrong than be hated and be right.
That's where my high disagreeability works out for me.
Yeah.
It's incomprehensible to me.
Yeah. Boy, I'm just pulling up some of my highlights from the end of this book. He actually wrote the line, he just oozed evil.
That's how one evils.
You just ooze it.
That's how one does that.
Yeah, we haven't talked too much about the mom. The mom is a vampire.
Yeah.
And she's trying to get Susan Shackelford, who looks just like her daughter. And there was a moment earlier in the story where she was attempting to seduce Owen. And he didn't know and thought it was Julie. And so that's a little creepy. And one of the characters says, dude, you score with your girlfriend's dead mom?
Which is what would happen. Which is, you'd make fun of somebody. Yeah, so she's a vampire. Owen's in bed asleep, and he wakes up, and then there's this Julie-looking thing in like a negligee who just throws a leg over him and goes to kissing on him, and then he realizes somehow that it's not actually Julie just before this vampire puts the chomp down on him and bucks her off, and then the fight's on.
Mm-hmm.
But it fooled me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yes. Yeah, it fooled me.
I just want to read another sample. I really enjoy his prose. So this is later in the book, and she's trying to recruit Sam to her. She wants her family back together. So she wants her husband. I think she turns him at the end. She wants to turn her daughter. She's like, Owen can come too. And even you, Sam, we could all be one big happy family. You can come with us too. Join my family. He scowled and spit tobacco juice on the ground. Susan, you were a mighty fine woman when you were alive and all, but personally I'd rather be gang raped by giant rabid syphilitic porcupines than join your shithead hippie commune undead family, you scrawny-ass vampire skank whore. He wiped his good arm across his mustache. It's going to be a cold day in hell before you've got the balls to come down here and take an ounce of red American blood out of Sam Roger Haven, you slack-jawed, hair-lipped, monkey-humping pussbag.
There you go.
All the bad words were in quotes. I didn't actually say them, just so you know. That's fun. Is this literature? Is this great literature? I think it's pretty good literature, but it's not highbrow. It's funny. It's a book you can enjoy because Larry Correia, as far as I can tell, has good character. It has good character in the story, too. You don't always have to read War and Peace, which is also kind of funny, but, I'm not going to make you do that.
Never read that.
You can read Monster Hunters. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a good book. Is Aristophanes, with all of its dick jokes and everything, like more literature than this is?
Aristophanes is pretty crude.
Really crude. Like Aristophanes will beat you down with the wiener stuff and the poop stuff and all that. I mean, it'll just beat you down with it. Yeah, so you didn't answer.
What was the question?
Is Aristophanes more literature than this?
I don't know. Ask me a couple thousand years if people are still reading Monster Hunters.
Well, Aristophanes in particular, do you think it's still around just because it's just so shocking and so ribald that people are like, I've got to keep this. You know what I mean?
Might be. At this point, it's probably going to continue to survive.
Sure.
As long as there is a canon, Aristophanes will be in it. And I love that there are dick jokes in the canon. There should be.
One of the lessons of Aristophanes may be, at this point, that people haven't changed. But as far as just like the pure literary merit of Aristophanes,
Well, invective has value too. So he's tearing holes into the powers in Athens.
Yeah. Including Socrates.
Yeah. That this is possible. This is the sort of thing that needs to happen. People need to be made fun of.
Yes.
I think that's very important. If you can't make fun of them, tell me the thing that you can't make fun of, and I'll tell you who your God is.
Right.
Are there people in the world that you can't make fun of? Well, they're the ones that rule you. So the idea that people can't be made fun of, it bothers me. So, that funny line from Sam Haven about the vampire lady trying to make a commune. I mean, there ought to be the possibility of language like that.
Yeah.
There's some touching moments at the end here. God, I don't even really want to spoil them all for you. There's this ancient hero that's been defending the artifact.
Okay, hang on. I think you should read this, listener. So hit stop right now and go read it. Because we need to talk about the rest of the book, but you need to go ahead and read it. Okay.
All right. So now they've read it?
Yep.
This teared me up a bit. When Thrall has helped Owen out at the end, but he's had 500 years, he gives a little bit of life back. So he saves Julie, this Thrall character. And then the ancient captain uttered one last thing. Until Ragnarok, my friend.
I know.
The hand limply fell away. The last bit of power flew home like a bolt. I turned Julie's head. It was a blood-soaked mess, but I could no longer see the entrance wound. Thrall's lungs rattled as he gave up the ghost. See you in Valhalla, I whispered. Buckets!
Yep. Ragnarok.
Yeah.
I said that some of the loose ends get tied up in too easy of a way there at the end, and that's one of them. And maybe I was reading awfully fast at the end, but check my math here. Owen and some of the folks dive through the rift into this pocket universe. I think that's what they call it. I can't remember. And they fight it all out and prevail by hook or crook. And then the rift is closed. So how do we get back? Well, we're just up in the sky and then we have to fall. What? Wait a minute. What? And then in the Skippy, the orc pilot just like happens to he matches their like falling velocity. And
it was a good bit of piloting.
A good
almost
bit of
magical piloting.
And drops like a chain ladder to him and he grabs it. He did write himself into a pretty tough spot there with this rift had closed and they didn't know where they were necessarily and all of that.
But he'd already set up that there was a magical pilot earlier in the book. So he's got it all worked out.
The McPilot. Right.
He had it sketched out. I bet he had index cards.
Right.
Or something. some script writing software.
But, lo and behold, we're just up in the sky. And then, she's dead, but Thrall...
You wanted him to kill Julie?
No, but like just as a dying... I don't know. It's a little easy. That's all.
Well, it's a fairy tale, and things get wrapped up at the end.
They do, and I liked it, and I'm not mad about it. But just to be fair, I got to point it out that it's a little weird there at the end, and it's a little bit... It comes together in some awfully convenient ways.
So I want to talk about the love story. So they managed to beat the bad guy, and Julie is alive again. She's got this black mark on her neck where she was healed, and that might show up in future books, by the way. So you should read the future books. It all ties together. So they're back at their ancestral home, and Owen wants to marry her, and he's bought the ring. But he's too much of a wuss to ask her to marry him, and he's just being slow. And, Owen, the vampire mom writes a letter. Dear Julie, we just wanted to drop you a note to let you know that we're doing fine. Your daddy's adjusting to his new lifestyle rather well. He's a real flair for it. We've been traveling and seeing the world like we always talked about doing, but never found the time. Now we have all the time in the world. This is beautiful. Her parents are
Boomers.
In an RV as vampires.
Boomers.
Boomer vampires. Just killing a few people around the world. It's hilarious. We want to offer a truce. I hope there's no hard feelings about the little incident we had. I just want what's best for all my children. Wish I could be at the wedding. I like this Owen. He's a good man. He'll be a good husband. If you're wondering about the wedding, I have to realize you can't read minds. Your poor boyfriend broadcast his thoughts so loudly I could pick them up from Mexico. The ring's in the armory. It's rather pretty. Congratulations. So she offers a truce. She tells her kid that Owen's going to propose to her. She makes an offer. One last offer. As you grow old and approach your mortal end, or if your health is fleeting and creeping sickness overtakes your body, if you choose not the cold embrace of death, call upon me and I will come. You're my daughter, and my offer of immortality still stands. Until that time, if you avoid us, we will avoid you. Search for me, and I will kill you and destroy everything that you hold dear with a vengeance terrible beyond your imagination. Love, Mom. P.S. I love what you've done with the place. He didn't quite understand Southern women, I think, or he would have had her say, bless your heart.
Right.
When the Southern ladies say bless your heart, it doesn't necessarily mean bless your heart. Mm-hmm. What does it mean?
No, it actually does mean that. It means it needs it real bad.
Got it. And I really like the ending. I found it charming. So Julie knows there's a ring. And he still hasn't proposed. Julie says, so where exactly is this ring? Downstairs, I replied nervously. I'd had it for weeks. The thought of her saying no was terrifying. Owen? What, Julie? Yes. Scene. Book ends.
The end.
So much fun.
Yeah, it's great fun. 703 pages. I probably read it in 5.5 or 6 hours. I mean, I greased that thing on. Maybe 7 hours. I really don't know, but just plowed right through it. I don't think I could have had that much fun with the same number of hours worth of television.
No.
Even if they made a movie of it. Have they made a movie of this?
Nope.
Yeah, that's good. They probably won't because he's not right. He's not the right kind of guy. He's not orthodox Hollywood.
No, they'd take out the best stuff. They wouldn't be able to do it, I don't think.
Yeah, they won't, and they don't want to throw any money his way.
I'm just counting up how many books I have done by him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I have read 16 of his books.
That's a lot of his books to have written.
Yeah. Lots of fun. He gets better. This is a pretty good first shot at writing. It's kind of inspiring. It makes you think, maybe I could do this. Well, you probably can't, but you won't if you don't try.
I can't.
Just do it pseudonymously and self-publish. What would your pseudonym be?
Oh, gosh.
Carlos Danger?
Queef Malone.
Bolt Lightning.
Bolt Lightning. I don't know. Well, thanks for recommending it. It's great. Even the little logo on their patches are funny. They talk about each of the teams has its own little logo and insignia. It's just great fun. Great fun. Good thing to have read.
You'll find there's a lot of value in the books that aren't, scare quotes, important.
All of them?
Not all of them.
No.
It has to be an author that's got good character, has got his head on in the right place. So I mentioned, Dean Koontz and Larry Correia. They're two of my favorites. I think have that. And so you can read the potboiler page turner, and it'll entertain you, but it won't crush your dreams or harm your soul. It'll be good.
Yeah, one of my favorite terrible books. See, terrible, it's not fair. One of my favorite non-highbrow things to read are the W.E.B. Griffin books. The Brotherhood of War, whole series of those. The Core series of those. Just about a bunch of guys in the military just being dudes.
I like the Craig Allenson Expeditionary Force books.
Craig,
those are a lot of fun too. Craig Allenson. Yeah, it's about 43 of those.
Of course, my beloved Sherlock Holmes books. I mean, I don't know that they're page turners. Maybe they are. Mickey Spillane novels, Louis L'Amour, Ed McBain, Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler. Love all that kind of stuff. I think they're decent folks that end up writing stories where the decentness comes on out. We got to read a Louis L'Amour. Got to do it.
Yeah, so this is a quote from Larry Correia. The first author I loved was Louis L'Amour. I kept one of his index pages and checked off every book as I read it. Eventually, I got them all.
He wrote a lot of them.
So, I don't know. Do you see a lot of Louis L'Amour in this book?
Yeah. Yeah. Have you read any or much Louis L'Amour?
I have read half of one, I believe.
Oh, my goodness. Goodness gracious. Okay, well, we got to read them all. I've probably read about half of them. Charity's grandparents have them all on a bookshelf, and being the introvert that I am and her family being so damn loud, I would go over there and just get one of those and just sit there and just read it. So they'd be all just raising hell all day Saturday doing whatever they do. And I would just sit there and just read Hondo, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've read many a Louis L'Amour book with her family, like throwing bottles and stuff around me. And they don't drink, by the way. None of them drink.
They just throw bottles.
They're just ruffians.
Where do they get the bottles?
They're pop bottles.
Oh, okay. They don't just keep beer on hand
No,
just to
they
throw?
don't drink. They're the rowdiest people you've ever seen. They're all like, none of them drink. They're just so loud and just, it's just raucous. When I first started going over there, I would just almost have a seizure from all the noise and all the raucous. Her grandma's house is like 1,100 square feet. I was in there one Christmas and there were like 42 people there. It was in the 40s. There were 40 people there, and most of them brought their dogs.
It sounds fun for 20 minutes.
It's fun for a minute. A little bit much for me. What's this next one we're going to read?
Oh, what is it? Triumph of the Therapeutic?
Triumph of the Therapeutic. Our friend and friend of the show, Brett McKay, said we needed to read this one and how to talk about it. Let's see. I'm going to go look it up. I already forgot the name of it.
The Triumph of the Therapeutic, Uses of Faith After Freud by Philip Reif.
There you go. We're going to cover that one.
I have never read it, so this will be new.
Yeah, I haven't read that one either. That's came out in 2006. We're going to cover that. And then the book after that is Lonesome Dove. And Uncle Brett McKay of Art of Manliness, he's going to join us to talk about that one. That's one of his very favorite books. Larry McMurtry hung out with Ken Kesey and all that electric Kool-Aid acid test crew Tom Wolfe wrote about?
I think I'd heard that. He just died recently, by the way.
I did not know that about him. I'm a little worried.
Lonesome Dove is good.
That's what I hear.
I'm interested for your reaction.
Brett loves it. Brett doesn't steer me wrong, but it's a little spooky. Did he write the screenplay for The Last Picture Show?
I think so.
And I do love that. Yeah, he sure did. He wrote that. Not the screenplay. He actually wrote the novel, The Last Picture Show, Terms of Endearment, Lonesome Dove. We shall see. Uh-oh. McMurtry and co-writer Diana Ossana adapted the screenplay for Brokeback Mountain. Oh my gosh, Brett, what have you done to me?
It's a very good book. I'm interested to see what things hit you wrong. Lots of it is going to hit you right.
Well, there you go. There's another online Great Books podcast about a really fun book, Monster Hunters International. No, that's singular. Monster Hunter International by Larry Correia. Awfully good. I'm going to say that he's a friend of the show. He doesn't know it yet. And you guys should go to Spotify, look up this episode, even if you're not listening on Spotify, and you can hit the share button, and it'll give you a link, and you can just post that link in Twitter, or you can click on a little Instagram button, because it's a little Instagram logo, and it'll post it to your Instagram stories. And that is so good for us because you don't have to tell somebody they'll like it. You just put it in their story, and if they click on it, they can just hear us instantly. It's the easiest way to get the show to someone else. So if you've had a show that you thought was interesting or wanted a friend to hear it, you don't even have to put it in front of them. You can just put it in on your Instagram stories or on your Twitter feed or whatever and help us get it out there. We don't have that many Twitter followers. It's hard to get them nowadays because, we don't look good in shorts and don't do TikTok dances, and, Instagram doesn't favor those
I look good in
edgy,
shorts.
Too much hair. Instagram algorithm doesn't favor those edgy, great books, accounts. So we can get a great boost by hijacking your feed. So go out there and share that for us if you would. It would be a great help to us. Tag us, and we'll post you right back. Meanwhile, go listen to the Go listen to that one. That next about oh boy, hopefully the death of psychoanalysis. That's what I'm hoping it's about.
And don't forget our Music and Ideas podcast. We have one that we just put in the can today, which I think is going to be pretty good.
I think so too. It's about chant.
It felt like a good show.
I think so. It's about chant. We've had a lot of people request that Karl hold our hand and lead us through the world of chant. I think you did that. I think you let us know what it means to you and what it's about when it's at its best. And I think it's going to be good. So go listen to that and share it with a friend, and then we will talk to you in a couple weeks.